remember that Finn's name as a Stormtrooper was FN-2187.
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 FN-2187. Remember me?
FN-2187.
Well, as it turns out, there's actually a really important backstory to the number 2187. In fact, in A New Hope, Princess Leia's cell number on the Death Star was 2187.
We gotta find out which cell this princess of yours is in. Here it is. 2187.
And not coincidentally, Leia also turned out to be Force sensitive. So what's the meaning behind 2187 anyway? Well, when George Lucas was in film school, he saw a short film that had a profound impact on him. That short film is called 2187 by Arthur Lipsett. In fact, it was this short film that inspired George Lucas to come up with the idea of the Force in the first place.
In communication with other living things, they become aware of some kind of force or something.
And then the people say, well, this is good, let's have more of it. And somebody walks up and you say, your number's 2187, isn't it? Boy, does that person really smile.
This is what George Lucas based the entire idea of the Force in Star Wars off of. George Lucas confirmed that the Force was an echo of the phrase on 2187. So to recap, a short film called 2187 was the inspiration to the Force. Leia, who ended up being Force sensitive, was in a cell number 2187, and Finn's name as a Stormtrooper was FN-2187. They really couldn't spell it out any more than this. In The Force Awakens, Finn wields a lightsaber multiple times in battle, and as we know, the lightsaber is the weapon of a Force user.
Lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
Finn is drawn to the saber, choosing it over a blaster whenever he has a chance, even throwing his blaster on the ground in favor of the lightsaber, even though he was trained to use a blaster as a stormtrooper. And not any old stormtrooper off the street should be able to wield a lightsaber like Finn does. In fact, almost every character in Star Wars that has used a lightsaber has been Force sensitive. Now, non-Force users can still technically turn on a lightsaber, like when Han Solo used Luke's lightsaber to open up a tauntaun, but using a lightsaber in battle is a completely different story. Lightsabers are dangerous weapons. There's a reason why non-Force users don't use them, because without the Force, you have a very high chance of cutting off one of your own limbs with it. So while it's still physically possible for Finn to not be Force sensitive and still use a lightsaber, it's very unlikely and close to impossible for him to be as good with a lightsaber as he is. And Finn is actually pretty impressive with the saber, especially when you consider he's had zero training at all with one. He kills a stormtrooper on his first try and does decently against a very well-trained stormtrooper with a baton. Now, he does get hit, but hey, even Luke was hit the first time he used a lightsaber too. Finn also fights and wounds Kylo Ren. Let that sink in for a bit. Finn, a stormtrooper, wounds one of the most powerful Force users in history, Kylo Ren, who was trained by Snoke and Luke Skywalker. Even if Kylo Ren was just toying with them, do you really think a non-Force user would be able to wound someone as powerful as Kylo Ren? I don't think so. Also, Maz Kanata, who knows the Force, i.e. is Force sensitive, gives Finn Luke's lightsaber in the first place. She could have given it to Han Solo or Chewbacca, both friends that she's known for years, but instead she gives it to Finn, someone she just met, because Maz Kanata can sense the Force within Finn. She even encourages Finn to use the saber in battle. Clearly, she can sense something that we don't. Star Wars has done a staggering amount of hinting to us that Finn is Force sensitive in the promotional material for The Force Awakens. First of all, in the trailer for The Force Awakens, it says The Jedi, then shows Finn on screen.
The Jedi.
Not to mention, Finn is always portrayed wielding a lightsaber, which is supposed to be reserved for Force users. In fact, in every single poster we see Finn holding a lightsaber. On StarWars.com, they seem to have carefully chosen specific words in the descriptions of the characters to hint towards their Force sensitivity. Under Finn's description, they explain that a skirmish on Jakku awakened his conscience. The title of the movie is The Force Awakens. Hint, hint. Next, they say again that the First Order's raid on Jakku awakened FN-2187's conscience. They use the word awakened again. Later it says, thinking Poe had died in the crash, Finn joined forces with the scavenger Rey. I think they're trying to hint towards something here, don't you? On Rey's page, it explains that Rey and Finn forged an unlikely friendship, escaping Jakku and finding themselves caught in a galactic war, with both of their destinies shaped by the awakened power of the Force. How much more proof do you need? They say it right there. Even Daisy Ridley says herself that she thinks Finn is Force sensitive.
I think that's the best part is like everyone was like, oh, Finn's Force sensitive, and it's Rey.
Yeah, cheeky. But he did wield the lightsaber, so I'm going to say he is Force sensitive.
Okay.
Because, you know, we've all got that Force within us.
I always was sensitive.
Believe it or not, but Finn can actually be seen outright using the Force in The Force Awakens. While outside of Maz Kanata's castle, Finn hears the screams of the people on the Hosnian system right before they are killed by the First Order. So as you can see, Finn hears the screams of the people in the Hosnian system before they are killed. He even turns around to look at the sky after he hears the screams. Notice the alien didn't turn around. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear the sound of the lasers hitting the planets. The exact same sound that happens a few seconds later in the next shot. And the screams are not coming from the other bystanders outside of Maz Kanata's castle, for tons of reasons, but mainly, none of them are screaming, like, at all. Finn hearing the screams of the people in the Hosnian system is very similar to when Yoda feels disturbances in the Force, and almost identical to when Obi-Wan sensed the screams of the people on Alderaan as they were destroyed by the Death Star.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
Finn's character seems to be based off of two characters in the expanded universe, both of which were Force sensitive and both became Jedis. The first being Finn Galfridian, which is probably where Finn got his name. Finn Galfridian's planet was invaded by an alien race called the Yuuzhan Vong. During the invasion, Finn fought in defense of his home world and demonstrated that he was Force sensitive when he sensed his mother and sister being captured. Luke Skywalker helped evacuate the people off the planet and noticed Finn's Force sensitivity and later trained him to be a Jedi as part of the new Jedi Order. The second character Finn seems to be based off of is Kyle Katarn. Kyle was an Imperial Stormtrooper who decided not to fight for the Empire anymore and turned to the light side and became a rebel. Kyle learned of his Force sensitivity later on, ending up teaching himself to become a Jedi and became part of Luke's new Jedi Order as well. Finn seems to be an almost perfect combination of these two characters who were both Force sensitive and both became Jedis. There's also a theme present in The Force Awakens where Force sensitive characters wear some type of mask and end up taking it off to reveal themselves later on. Rey has a mask, then takes it off. Maz Kanata has goggles, then she takes them off. Kylo Ren has a helmet, then takes it off. Finn has a helmet, then takes it off. And even Luke has a hood hiding his face, then he takes the hood off. Finn and Rey seem to also parallel each other. Early in The Force Awakens, they show a close-up of Finn under his helmet, then transition to Rey under her mask, foreshadowing their connection later on. Finn is exceptionally gifted as well, a definite sign of a Force user. Finn seems to be the only Stormtrooper in history that can actually hit his target. In fact, in the book Before the Awakening, it explains that Finn was one of the best Stormtroopers anyone had ever seen. Whatever the test, whatever the evaluation, FN-2187 consistently scored in the top 1%. This reinforces even more that Finn is Force sensitive. It explains why he's so good at absolutely everything. He's even amazingly successful at using a ship's gunner with no experience, just like Luke. He does very well on his first time using a ship's gunner with Poe, even after showing that he has never been trained to use a gunner before.
Can you shoot? Blasters I can. Okay, same principle. Use the toggle on the left to switch between missiles, cannons, and mag pulse. Use the sight on the right to aim. Triggers to fire. This is very complicated.
And he does even better on the Millennium Falcon. It also seems that he has a connection through the Force with Rey as they echo each other during the dogfight on Jakku. Finn also traveled halfway across a blazing hot desert planet with no water or navigational tools and just so happens to navigate through some vague senses of his and came across the exact village that not only Rey was in, but also BB-8, who's carrying the map to Skywalker. Finn is obviously being guided by the Force, and even later on, Finn seems to sense that Poe Dameron is still alive, even though all evidence pointed towards Poe dying on Jakku. Finn searches for him on the tarmac, almost like he sensed his presence through the Force. When Snoke says to Kylo Ren, "There has been an awakening, have you felt it?" he's referring to the Force awakening in Finn, not Rey. Specifically the moment on Jakku when Finn decides to change to the light side. We know this because the scene where Snoke says there has been an awakening was at about 50 minutes into the movie. This is way before Rey shows any Force abilities at all, since the first time we see Rey using the Force was in Maz Kanata's castle during her Force vision, but that was almost 20 minutes later into the movie. And the scenes where Rey reads Kylo Ren's mind, does a Jedi mind trick, etc. were all nearing the end of the movie. The only thing that happens before Snoke says there has been an awakening was Finn deciding not to kill for the First Order anymore and changing to the light side while on Jakku. Finn also helps Poe Dameron escape the First Order and then helps Rey and BB-8 escape Jakku, all right before Snoke says there has been an awakening. And this isn't just clumsy editing either, as this line is directly linked to the title of the entire movie, so they're going to be very particular as to the exact moment when this line is said in The Force Awakens, and they purposefully chose to put that line before Rey shows her Force abilities, but right after Finn does. Kylo Ren says he felt the awakening too, and the only moment we see Kylo noticing the Force awakening up to this point was when he noticed the Force in Finn. Right after Finn decides not to kill for the First Order anymore while standing on Jakku, Kylo Ren is seen walking back to his ship when he suddenly stops as he senses the Force and then turns and stares at Finn. Kylo Ren is noticing the Force awakening at this moment. He felt the Force, turned to where it was coming from, and noticed that the Force is awakening Finn. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any more evidence pointing towards Finn being Force sensitive, definitely leave it in the comments down below. I'm making another Star Wars fan theory right now about how Finn may actually be the son of Luke Skywalker. It's my favorite theory I've seen so far. It's absolutely crazy. So if you subscribe, you'll get notified when I upload that new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
For the great disturbance of the Force.